Hey, what's up guys? Back again with another video in the Java series. In this video, I'll be teaching you about record patterns. So in Java 16, we saw that records were added to Java, and records are simply a way of easily creating classes that are basically POJOs, or plain old Java objects, which are classes that have private members, getters and setters, all that basic stuff. So records allow you to declare classes effectively and concisely, and that was in Java 16, right? But now we're in Java 22 at the time of recording, so we've come a long way. And one of the features that was added before in Java 21 is something called record patterns. And this is JEP 440, which is just the name of the feature for Java. And you can find this documentation online to see more about it if you want to and read more into it. But yeah, I'm going to teach you about record patterns, which is a way of destructuring records, okay? So right now we have declared a simple record called point. It has members x and y, and they're both integers. And then we're declaring a new object of that class, so point1 has, the values 1 and 2 for x and y. And then in Java 16, we actually saw another feature, which is Instanceof pattern matching. I do have a video on how to do this. I recommend checking that video out. It's pretty cool. This is whenever you have something like a variable and you want to see if it's a specific type of a class or an interface or something like that. And then if it is, it automatically gives you this variable to use. So this little part here was not possible in previous versions of Java before 16. So now if point1 is an instance of point, you also get this p variable that you can use within the code block here. So we're just calling, .x and .y, which are getters provided by the record. So that's Java 16, but now we have a little bit of a more advanced version of that, which is from Java 21, like I mentioned before. So record patterns allow you to destructure values. So let's see what that means. So if we do if point1 is an instance of point, same as before, but now we can do int x and int y. So what we're doing here is saying if point1 is an instance of point, then give us these variables x and y that we can use inside of this code block here. But what's cool is that these x and y values are the actual members of the record itself. So that is exactly what I mean when I say destructuring. You're taking this record or this class, whatever you want to call it, and extracting the members from it. So I think that's pretty cool. So now we can do sout x and sout y. So if we compare these two things that we have here, this one is a little more direct because we no longer have to call these getter methods. We can just directly use the variables if you want to. So here we're doing p.x, which is a method, and then p.y, which is a method. But here, since we're using record patterns, we're able to destructure the point record if this is an instance of point, and then use these variables directly. And then otherwise, we can do else, and we could say not a point. Of course, you can always do that. What's cool is we can also do nesting. So we could do nested record patterns to essentially destructure a record within another record. So if we go back up here to where we made our first record, we can make a second one called line. And so we'll just have point 1 and point 2. So now this new record relies on the first one because it has points inside of it. So if we go down here now, we could just make an example variable. So line 1 is equal to new line, and then we could just give it 2 points. So 2 points would be something like 1 and 2, and then we could add another point. We could say 3 and 4. Okay, pretty simple, just a basic example here for an object that we can use. So now let's go ahead and do our record pattern. So again, we're just going to have our variable. So line 1, we're going to check to see if it's an instance of something particular. In this case, it's going to be our line record or line class. And so we're going to destructure this now. So we're just going to put whatever a line has. So a line has 2 points as we saw before. So if we want to, we can just copy this and put it down here. And so now inside of this if statement, we can use point 1 and point 2. There's just a conflict here because I already had point 1. So this is actually a good example. These variable names don't have to be the same variable names that you have within the record itself. So you can just make this whatever you want because these are just regular variables that are provided to this block here. So if you want to, you could call this point A and point B. And now let's just say for testing sake, we want to print out all of the xy coordinates of each of the points. So we could do sout. So we're doing a simple record pattern. So we're saying if line 1 is an instance of line, then go ahead and destructure this using record patterns so that we can automatically be provided the 2 points that are part of that record, and we can just go ahead and use them directly. So we have point A and point B being able to be used directly here. But as you can see here, we're doing point A.x and point A.y, and same thing for point B. It would be nice if we can just directly use these x and y variables that we know are part of the point record, okay? So of course we can go ahead and destructure these as well. So we can just take this and get rid of the name and just put parentheses here, and now we just put whatever types that record has. So we have int x and int y. So since we have 2 points, we'll do like int x1 and int y1, and then We can go ahead and destructure this one as well because we need those values, and we could say int x2 and int y2. So now if we just go down here, we can directly use these variables. It definitely makes it a little more concise, which is very cool. And there we go. So now we have nested record patterns. So we're using a record pattern within a record pattern. So we have this one here, we have this one here, and then we have this one here. So I think it's 3 technically. And we can go ahead and just run this to see what happens. We haven't even ran the program yet, but I'll just go ahead and show you real quick. So down here at the very bottom, we get the last 4 values, 1, 2, 3, 4, which makes sense because that's the coordinates of the points that we have, okay? Now another important thing to know is that of course you may not want to use or destructure all parts of the record. So in this case, we have a line that we're destructuring, and then inside of that we have a point. We have 2 points that we're destructuring, but let's say that you only want the first point for some reason, right? You don't really care about the second point. We just get rid of that. You can actually just not destructure if you don't want to. So you can go ahead and do just point, point 2 or whatever you want to call it, point B, right? And if you want to, you could also just use var to make it even more concise, because var is just something that will infer the type for you, right? So if you do Control Q now, it knows that it's a point behind the scenes. You don't really have to tell it that if you don't want to. And something I'll show you guys in the next video is that in Java 22, there's actually a new feature introduced where if you just want to ignore like certain parts of this directly, like this whole second variable, if you want to, you could just use an underscore. So that's pretty cool, but I'll show you that in another video after this one. But yeah, so now we have line 1, we're destructuring it, we're only using 1 point, and we're destructuring that point. And we don't really care about the second one, so we're just going to do var point B. So we're just going to let it, hang out over here. And we can still use point B if you want to. It's just the point that we don't really care about destructuring it. You can make that choice for yourself. Okay, so one more thing I'm going to show you guys is that you can use record patterns in switch statements as well, not just for if statements. So we could do switch, and then we could do line 1. So we can go ahead and do the record pattern right here. So we could do something like line, and it actually gives you a suggestion as you just saw. So we could do tab to autocomplete that. And then now inside of here, we can go ahead and use those points if you want to. So point2.x, like that. There we go. And just like before, you can also destructure this further. So we could do something like var x and then var y, or you can do int, up to you. And then you could add more cases if you want to. But yeah, this is just to illustrate to you that you can use them not only in if statements, but also in switch statements as well. So it's pretty cool. Alright, so that's actually all I want to show you guys for this episode. I hope you found it interesting. So just as a very basic recap here, we created a record. We saw how to instantiate an object of that type, pretty simple. We saw how to do the Java 16 feature of instance of pattern matching to see if a object is an instance of a particular type. And then we saw how we can enhance that with the records to do record patterns, which is a way of destructuring a record to get the fields of the record directly. So if point1 is an instance of point, then go ahead and provide the x and y variables to use within that code block, so that you can just go ahead and use them directly without having to call point.x, something like that, like a getter, for example. Otherwise, if it doesn't match all of that criteria, it's going to go ahead and do else. And then after that, we saw how to do nested record patterns, which is simply a record pattern within a record pattern. So we're checking to see if line 1 is a line. If it is, then go ahead and also pull out the fields of point, the first point, and then for the second point, just provide it as a regular var. And the var is going to be inferred as a point. So that's nested record patterns. And then finally, I showed you guys that you can also use record patterns within switch cases as well. So yeah. So that's it for this video, everybody. I really hope you learned something new. If you liked the video, please hit the like button, and if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Make sure to also check the description below for important links to code and other resources, but also really important, join our Discord. We have a big community of over 5,000 programmers, and it's a place where you can find new friends or get help on any code that you're stuck on. If you want to support what I do on this channel, please consider hitting the join button below, and this will allow you to support my channel for as low as $1 a month, but there are different tiers to choose from if you want to. For anyone that becomes a member on my channel, you get a special rank on my Discord server, early access to new videos, and you can just see yourself on the screen right now. So if that sounds cool to you, feel free to join. If you don't want to, that's fine. If you can't, that's okay too. I really just appreciate you watching the video anyway. Thank you so much. And that's it. Peace.